Hey everybody, this is Khara Brindle, co-founder of the Empowerment Model of Clinical Supervision. Welcome to another video of the Stellar Supervision series. Yay! All things supervision is what we like to talk about. Today, my special guest is Jen. Jen's going to tell you a little bit more about her because she has an awesome blending of how she approaches things both in private practice and schools, which comes up a lot actually. So Jen, thanks for being here.
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Jen Jackson, and I am a school counselor at Denver Christian School. And I'm currently the elementary school counselor and the lead counselor over the counseling program. However, I have worked with all grades preschool through 12th in my 23 years there. And I also do some supervision and consultation on the side, specifically with those that are working towards their licensure, that are working in some sort of educational field, whether they are in a school as a school counselor in a public school or private school, or maybe in higher ed, or even in like a ministry or a nonprofit organization. So.
Yeah, you do a little bit of everything, which is why I love that you're here. Yay. Well, and I know I talked to you offline, as our viewers are about to hear. I talked to you offline about how there's these interesting questions that come up for folks that are both in school settings and in private practice. And I feel like you're my go-to person when I'm like, I'm stumped. I don't know what those things are. So obviously, as our viewers get to know you better, the hope is they can also come to you with those questions
Sure,
if you're comfortable.
definitely.
So what's the skill you want to highlight today of what you bring to the table in supervision?
So I think of the word validation. I feel like that's kind of been a word that's really been in my brain and in my heart the last few years as we've gone through COVID. But I think especially in validating my supervisees. In our counseling program at school, we have a lot of interns every year. We have 2 to 3, and I've done undergrad and graduate. So I feel like at that age, especially, or as a new counselor, they do need a lot of validation and a lot of encouragement and a lot of just knowing that they're heard and that they're seen and that their work is heard and seen. But also with that, they need to be aware of themselves and seen and heard in themselves. So I feel like having validation, my validating them, my building rapport and getting to know them, also I think in turns brings into them as a counselor, and that I would hope that they would model that too, to validating their clients or validating the students that they are working with. And I have seen that. It's like if they know they're important, that their work's important, they put a little bit more into it.
I love that. I think that's totally true, especially because that leads into the confidence conversation that one of your colleagues is going to talk to us about in this series. So, validation, confidence, and just building up that next generation of therapists, absolutely important.
Definitely.
So, how would you know if validation is a necessary thing to bring to the table? What would you be looking for in a supervisee to say, this is a piece that we need to look at and work on?
Sure. So I think that there's a couple ways. I think one of them is just, everybody wants to be known and heard and unconditionally known and heard. And I think that's a building block of any relationship. So I think that that's just kind of a no-brainer. That's just common. And I think then too, when you look at the supervisee, when you're working with them, sometimes you can just tell they want to ask a lot of questions. I know for myself, when I was first getting supervised out of grad school, I would ask a lot of questions like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And really, I just wanted validation that I did the right thing. And so sometimes when they're asking a lot of questions about their work or how they did something, I'm like, okay, that's them needing an attaboy or to see how I see their strengths are, or how to even give some good feedback. And then I think too, validation. So I feel like they kind of have this over passion drive, like they've come out with all this knowledge, especially when they're about to go into an internship program or they've graduated from grad school. And that's great. But sometimes those grad schools have feeded this ego. And so they're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And I know all these skills. And it's like, wait a minute, you've got to slow down, because if they don't slow down, they're not going to slow down for their clients or for their students. And so I sometimes see that when they're so jazzed and excited, it's good energy, but it can be a little dangerous too.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you naming that because I feel like there is a generation that we're tracking that are coming in with a lot of confidence, but they don't know what they don't know. And so it's like, how do we broach that without breaking the rapport that you mentioned and not having this like power dynamic, but still being like, hey, there's some things I want you to learn and practice and try. Because I think there are some supervisees who don't even want to share or admit, I don't know that, or they might fake it till they make it. And that could be really detrimental to the client work, don't you think?
Definitely. I've had some of my interns say several times how, as they talk with their other co-ops or students that they are in class with, how they don't get a chance just to share with their supervisors. Like they don't feel like that's an open door. And they've said the opposite in working in our time together. They're like, oh, I feel like I can tell you where I've made a mistake. I feel like I can tell you or ask a question that's a little bit more like, am I off or something? I feel like it's a lot more open and unconditional relationship if I can validate them from the beginning and continue that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. And I imagine it's very action oriented of like you
Yeah.
showing up a certain way and being consistent to say this is okay to talk to me about or admit something or to just own that they don't know what they don't know. So for other supervisors who are watching this video, are there certain tips that you might give them to say, here's how validation can be delivered?
Sure. So I know for being in a school setting, one of the ways is I just honestly will say, is there a student you want me to walk in with and be in that session with you? Or as we lead small groups or as we do psych ed in the classrooms, they might ask me, can you come in and give me feedback upon this lesson or upon this group that I give? So I don't necessarily lead the counseling session, but I'm back there taking note or observing. And then we have a session, a supervision session where I give that feedback. So that's a very direct way to do that. Another time is literally sometimes just saying, so kind of giving them back questions. How do you feel like things are going? How are you handling this? Kind of an evaluation process, but a very informal evaluation process. And then also too, I just straight tell them, hey, you're coming from school, so you do know some new things that I don't know. I've been in this for 23 years. I don't know all the jazz. So please give me information so I can learn from you. So I think when I give kind of that open door, it does allow for them to be where I can call them on something or I can see something in them. But I also like just the idea of a theme and trying to pull themes every couple of weeks as I meet with my supervisees and just say, I see this theme in your work. I see this theme as you talk. So that's kind of another way that I kind of validate. And those themes, I can give good feedback. I can give encouragement. But again, if I have built this validation and rapport, I can also give critique too.
Right. I love that you're finding themes because I feel like that still makes it very concrete and safe and structured. So it's not just like, hey, you're a horrible therapist. I don't think any of us would say that. But it gives a chance to have like a container for all of that, right? Especially if you're doing evaluations of their work or sitting in the back of the room. I know a lot of internship sites require that because it is so valuable to be like, oh, I watched your video or I watched your recording or I watched your telehealth session to give that feedback in real time. Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
Any other things that you can think of that would help people really embrace validation from, I'm assuming, a very authentic place? Because we don't want to just be like flattering, right? There's a difference between saying you're great and showing them that they have something of value.
I think you just got to slow down the supervision process. Again, these young people are coming out with this excitement and this nurse Nightingale kind of passion. I'll often my interns come in and, at a school, we're doing a lot of brief therapy, solution-based therapy. And so it's more like an IEP. You have 3 to 5 sessions to get it together. We can sometimes expand upon that, but then these students come in with the sense of that. And so I have to say, slow it down. It's okay if you don't hit a goal right away with these students, and they're children too. Look at the fact that they're not adults and they don't have the capability to move on. So really slowing down the supervision process to say, look, you're not off. You're doing a good job. This is where you can do differently. And so I have to slow myself down in our meetings just as much as I have to tell them to slow down, draw yourself in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that part of that eagerness that you named, it is really hard to just be present, or if they start to then have self-doubt, some of those things show up too as clinicians. So,
definitely.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing it's a balancing act, and it's showing up authentically and giving them the safe space to admit some things, to have the feedback, to have the validation all in one place. If people want to talk to you about this further, because I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg, how can they reach you?
So they are welcome to email me at my work email address at Denver Christian at JJACKSON. So J Jackson at denverchristian.org. That's my work email. I am on summer break right now, so I'm slow to respond until we are back in session in August, but I will respond. Or they're welcome to even call me at a 303-549-5175. That's my cell phone.
Awesome. Well, Jen, I appreciate your wisdom. Obviously, doing this for 23 years, you have a lot of wisdom to share, and I just really appreciate you jumping on this video with me today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Viewers, stay tuned for more videos in the Stellar Supervision series. We'll see you next time.